Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, we're approaching the one-year mark of one of the worst tragedies in Arizona history. Tonight, we look back at the Yarnell Hill fire. Also tonight, we'll hear about a comprehensive national study on global warming. Those stories next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. A Tucson woman has started an online petition that asks for Superintendent of Public Instruction John Huppenthal to resign. Linda Thomas started the petition on change.org. The site includes a pre-written letter asking Huppenthal to step down due to a number of offensive online comments posted to local political blogs. A programming note: this coming Monday, John Huppenthal is scheduled to join us here in studio on Arizona Horizon. Well, it's been nearly a year since the Yarnell Hill wildfire killed 19 firefighters, easily the worst firefighting tragedy in Arizona history. Joining us now to look back at the Yarnell Hill tragedy and its impact on the state is KTAR Radio's Jim Cross, who covered the fire extensively, as did Mike Watkiss of KTVK TV. Good to see you both here. Thank you both for coming in. And we should mention that you're here, and you're probably going to wind up heading from here to up to Pine Top because we got a fire breaking out up there, don't we?
That is a unlimited potential fire.
Yeah,
it's growing by leaps and bounds. A lot of fuel in front of it.
Let's get back to Yarnell. Jim, when did you first hear of the fire, and was there any indication that anything like what we wound up having was ready to occur?
No, I had just come back in from Idaho the day before. The text started flying, tweets and so on about, Yarnell, this fire has gone from this much acreage to rapidly growing. Then the tweets and the text started coming, the information that they had lost 19 firefighters in the smoke, and everybody hoped that they had just lost them in the smoke, and then it turned out they weren't in the smoke.
Mike, was it initially out of the ordinary in any way?
I've been doing this for about 40 years, Ted, and there are a handful of stories where I feel like I just got the wind knocked out of me. 9/11, getting to the scene at 9/11 in Oklahoma City getting the news that these 19 firefighters had lost their lives, I felt like a body blow. And I think that the state still feels that way, and I think it impacted our coverage. I think we were shocked and numbed covering that story. All of us in sort of a state of shock, even covering and the firefighters responding. And it was, as you say, a historic event that I think, rocked Arizona. And a year after the fact, there's still so many raw emotions.
And I want to get back to that because I think there's a good point. People still seem to be a little bit in shock. We'll get to that in a second. But back to the scene. Describe the scene. What was going on up there?
Well, the firefighters had gone into a canyon, and there was a thunderstorm near the fire, several miles away from the fire, and it essentially turned the fire around on them. They went back as far into that horseshoe canyon as you can possibly get. They tried to use the chainsaws and cut down everything around them to stop, to create a safe zone. Didn't work, didn't have enough time, too much stuff in that canyon. I remember coming down out of Prescott at nighttime. I went up there after dark, and I came down out of Prescott, and it was so bright over Yarnell, I thought it was the lights over Phoenix.
Yeah.
So.
And the sad truth of it is these young men were in a safe area, and they decided to descend basically into there's Horseshoe Canyon. They're up top in a black area, safe area, burned area, and they descended down. Because they're go-getters, and they're guys who want to respond, and they hats off to those gentlemen. Still, a year after, I think people's hearts are broken over that. But they went down, and as Jim said, that fire turned around in front of them, and then they were completely trapped.
When you were up there covering the story, when the information was first starting to filter out, confusion? Was there chaos at the scene? What was going on up there?
I think so. I think that there was utter confusion, and and I think that those have been borne out in the aftermath of the reports. Communication was poor. The mission for what these guys, a lot of finger pointing, and certainly the state forestry as a result of that the industrial commission study, there were a lot of problems there.
They not only said a lot of problems in management, a lot of problems in terms of communication, in terms of aviation, the whole 9 yards. And again, we talk about the shock factor. I think a year later, people are still in shock. And it surprises some that we haven't seen some monumental white paper or change plan. Has anything changed in terms of fighting wildfires?
If it has, and it probably has, we have not been privy to it. We have not been made aware. I think the one piece of information I had over the past few months, the change that they were talking about was they were going to test out GPS systems on the firefighters' packs, along with the Forest Service. Not sure how many firefighters are carrying those in Arizona. I assume some are. That's the one change we were aware of, but very few changes were made public.
You know, and I think there were a lot of angst and strife at the legislature. I mean, we sort of live in a culture of the news cycle, and unfortunately, that's with these big dramatic events. There's all kinds of willpower to do something in the immediate aftermath. But as the weeks and the months carry on, that willpower on the part of the legislature or people who could really make a difference seems to get sort of diluted. And here we are a year after that. We've got what is, as Jim mentioned, a potentially catastrophic fire erupting in eastern Arizona even as we speak. And you know, the history of forest management and how we respond and so many issues. But the bottom line is we're now in the season, in the years of big fires, and I think they're going to continue.
Yeah, for a long, long time.
This
is not going to end anytime soon, if
Well,
ever.
If it's not going to end anytime soon, and people, they still want answers. We did a number of shows here trying to get answers, and it seemed like you got maybe a couple here. Again, with communication and these sorts of things, how do people have confidence that something like this isn't going to happen again?
Well, if you have any sort of confidence that it's not going to happen again, you are truly living in a fool's paradise, because it is going to happen again. The interface with the communities and the forests and the status of our forests are so unhealthy at this point.
Real quickly, talk about that, the reaction you had from residents up there regarding this whole situation, from the time you got there to the time you left.
Well, you know, you had people, you find people evacuated from their homes, literally running with what's the clothes on your back, and those are moments of great trauma for these people. And Jimmy and I have interviewed many folks like that, and you see them again, the sort of the arc of the story. I was up there last week with a couple of homeowners, a woman who's now buying a new home in Yarnell, lost her home, and another couple that lost their home and they're rebuilding. So life goes on. And they're stout, strong people up there, and the community's trying to move on. The families that lost those young men, the loved ones, I don't know how you go on from then. Yeah. But it is what the headlines we're now seeing are about lawsuits, and but I think privately those people are in anguish.
And again, as far as these residents are concerned, are people starting to understand, clear the stuff away from your house? Maybe you don't build so deeply into the forest. The development aspect of this, has that changed at all?
I hope so. I hope it was a wake-up call, because a lot of these homes that went didn't have any defensible space. They had brush pretty much up to their front door. And that's the one thing, we've done story after story, year after year, get that defensible space around your house, because it can make the difference between losing that home or losing lives. Just, a weekend of work clearing that stuff away. Everybody needs to do that. And Mike made a good point. Everything is so, with the state's growth, people wanted to live out in the timber, out in the desert, and you're putting homes, in many cases, hundreds of homes, in places where there have never been homes. Areas that used to burn historically, now they're burning. The drought is a huge issue right now. We haven't had rain since March. We've had 1 inch of rain since mid-December in the valley. Very little around the state. Flagstaff snowpack was 1/3 of what it should be this year. So it's bone dry, it's bad.
And that we have had fires since the Yarnell Hill fire. When you've covered these fires, you talk to the firefighters, even talk to the residents. Do you sense a little difference? Is it the same as it's always been, or is everyone even more on edge?
Oh, I don't think that this is going to ever leave the minds of people who were in Arizona a year ago and will be here for some time. The firefighters are aware of this. I think everybody knows that it brought home to all of us what a fire can do. It can kill people, it can destroy homes, it can ravage our forests, and it was all crystallized 1 year ago. And so I think everybody knows that, but when you get on a fire, those guys are all about business, and I don't think they're changing. Those guys do what they do, those men and women who want to go out and fight. We got 4 hotshot crews attacking this fire right now. There'll be more by the time this show airs, and it's just the bottom line is they're all about business, and they've always been about it. I love the firefighters. I'm not sure the managers always do a great job, but the boots on the ground, They're always good.
Yeah, so, and you mentioned earlier, that these are go-getters, and these firefighters. This is what they do. This is their life. But even so, are they going and getting at the same rate, or is this just basically in their DNA? What do you think?
I think this is the way these men and women are wired. They're firefighters.
And thank goodness we got folks like that, because we make that old analogy. They're the people who run in when the rest of us are running out. And I've covered, again, and Jimmy has too, for decades. I've covered that persona, and thank goodness we got folks like that.
Oak Creek Canyon was a nasty, nasty fire.
Yes.
Steep cliffs. You can't dig in it. You have to air tanker it when you could, but it was too steep and narrow to even get a tanker into. These guys 15 hot shot crews were in that canyon. They saved every home from burning. In Oak Creek Canyon and Forest Highlands and Kachina Village, they were close to being lost.
Oh, there's no doubt. And on the footnote to that, we've had some success, very minimal, but some success in actually going into some forest areas and clearing them out.
And that
making
helped in
it
that fire, didn't it?
healthier.
Yes.
And they certainly told us that because Oak Creek Canyon is such a gem, it had obviously had some treatment in that forest, and that helped suppress that fire.
What was learned? What have we learned from the Yarnell Hill tragedy?
I think there's a lot of lessons. I think it may have changed, whether we're getting the information on how it changed or not. I think it changed the nature of how they fight fires. I still think they're going to fight them aggressively. I think Oak Creek Canyon was proof of that. But there is not a firefighter in this country right now that will never have Yarnell in the back of their mind for the rest of the time while they go into these situations to fight wildfires. Communications, whether or not that changed, remains to be seen.
Mike, in the end, what was learned from all this?
Oh, I wish I could say there were so many lessons learned. I think there are plenty of things that we should have learned, but a year down the road, I don't know. Honestly, and that's the sort of distressing thing about this. I'm not certain what we've learned. And now with another fire raging, I guess we'll see.
Yeah, and we have a memorial service now coming up Monday, a couple of memorial services.
Separate ones, one for the families, private service in Prescott.
Yeah.
Also, there will be a city memorial, a number of other events going on Sunday and Monday in Prescott to mark the 1-year anniversary.
And I guess the fact that there will be 2 memorial services kind of says a lot about the aftermath of all this, doesn't it?
Well, this has been an ugly story, and we were up there with people who were rebuilding homes, and their message to me was, for people who are passing judgment about what's going on in our community and with us, unless you've walked in our shoes, you don't know what we've gone through in the last year. And I thought that was sort of an interesting point, and a number of them made that to me.
Interesting as well. Okay, you guys, great job, great work, both of you, and we wanted to get you in to get your recollections, and let's hope we never have to do it again. Thank you both.
Fingers crossed, yeah. Thanks, Ted.
Climate change is here, and how we adapt to it will go a long way in determining the future of humans on Earth. That's the basic conclusion of the recently released third National Climate Assessment Report by the National Climate Assessment and Development Advisory Committee. The report is the most comprehensive look so far at the science and effects of climate change in the U.S. Among those contributing to the report, ASU Life Sciences professor Nancy Grimm and ASU School of Geographical Sciences and Urban Planning professor Michael Kuby. Good to have you both here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks.
All right, the National Climate Assessment Development Advisory Committee. Whew, that's a long name. What's it all about?
So that committee is actually a committee of about, I forgot the number, but maybe it's something like 65 individuals who oversaw the development of the report, which was actually accomplished more like the IPCC by a group of 300 authors on the 30 chapters that were in the report.
And what did the report look at?
It looked at sectors. It looked at eight sectors that are actually required by the Global Change Act of 1990. It also looked at 8 regions of the United States. So what were the impacts of climate change? What are the expected future impacts? And to some extent, what can we do about it?
And the conclusion is, as I mentioned, it's here. We better start adapting. That pretty much what it was?
Absolutely. It's already happening, and it's affecting every region of the country and every sector of society.
What do we know right now, today, about climate change? In general.
As far as the effects or the causes, or
You name it. What do we know?
Okay, well, we can start with certain facts. There's a massive amount of carbon that is under the ground in the form of fossil fuels that took millions of years to turn into fossil fuels. And that has been released, a lot of it, in the span of a century or two. And so we know that fact. We know that the parts per million of CO2 in the atmosphere has gone from 280 in the pre-industrial era to over 400. And
Just recently.
just in the last couple of years, we know that CO2 is a gas that keeps the atmosphere warm, and so more CO2 is going to make the atmosphere warmer. And just right down the line, we know that the effects of increasing the CO2 are what we're seeing. Almost 2 degrees warming since the end of the 19th century, 8 inches of sea level rise, retreating glaciers, shrinking Arctic and Antarctic ice.
And these are things we know. These aren't things that look like on a computer model that are going to happen. These are facts.
These are things that have happened already.
Yes.
This is already.
This is the already part of it. It's predictable to some extent from the changes that we've seen, but what is really unknown is how the climate is a system, and how that will actually change. So, for example, you've heard, and I think that the report does a very good job of looking at the latest evidence that the frequency and magnitude of extreme events will change. And by extreme events, I mean things like heavy rains, which we've already seen in most regions of the country, increases in the frequency of the heaviest 10% of rain events. We also would see changes in storms like hurricanes. We would see increases in storm surge, riverine flooding, urban flooding, and so forth.
And
all those are extreme, and extreme heat, which is something
Yes.
we think about a lot.
And
here
I want to get back to you in a
With
second
higher
on
heat
that.
and longer duration heat waves.
And so, in terms of urban planning, everything from transportation to where you're going to set your house, what do we do? What are the recommendations? What do you see out there?
Well, the effects on transportation, they're going to be direct effects on the travelers, on the infrastructure, on the vehicles, and then there are indirect effects that which crops are grown where. So we have this whole transportation system designed to ship wheat from certain areas, and that they're going to be grown in different in new areas in the future.
Like basically moving north, you're saying, or something along those
Oh,
lines?
sure, absolutely. And energy. The amount of heating oil going to some places will go down. The amount of energy needed for cooling in the summer will go up. So all these patterns will also affect transportation.
And I'm guessing the Southwest is where some of that energy to cool. I mean,
Well, certainly,
hotter,
but
drier.
also in other areas as well. Heat waves are a real big concern for many cities in the north and the northeast. New York, for instance, very concerned about heat waves and how they're going to prepare for those kinds of things.
How about us here in the Southwest?
Well,
Biggest
certainly.
challenges.
Yeah,
but
it's a large challenge. And it's compounded by the fact that over 90% of our population lives in cities. And so there's this other urban heat island effect that cities produce. On top of that, the increases in temperature we're going to see, in the Southwest chapter, I think some of the projections, some of the biggest projections, which are actually, by the way, the trajectory we're on right now, are suggesting that we could see very large temperature changes by mid-century in the extreme heat realm. So really looking like a not very pleasant place to be.
Yeah, and every time we talk about climate change, global warming, we get folks who call and write and they express their skepticism at the very least on this. I've already seen this report as being called alarmist. People saying there's not enough data to know if it's as man-caused, and lots of theories, not so much proof. How do you convince those who just simply will not believe in climate change and global warming and it being man-caused? What do you do? What do you say?
Well, I would say go look at the report and all of the evidence that underlies every sentence in the report. There's a traceable account of supporting evidence, and you can trace it back to the original scientific articles that were the basis of those statements.
And
it was very exacting.
We're talking about hundreds of scientists who were participating in this, and not just academic scientists, scientists in governments and non-government organizations, as well as the private sector, and not just the chapter authors, but all of the people that contributed technical input to the report. So a large number of scientists. It's an excellent report. We worked very hard to make it transparent to anyone. I mean, you don't have to be a scientist to be able to read this. It's very transparent. You'll be able to understand the science and the arguments that are in there.
So for those who say that this is just a cyclical warming or a cyclical cooling that we had maybe previous and for 30 years or something, I'd say, how do you respond?
Every decade of the last 3 or 4 has been hotter than the last. Every year in the 2000s has been hotter than the average in the 90s.
So if you accumulate this over the past century, and particularly since mid-20th century, you will see every decade increasing in the average temperature. Of course, there's variability in the climate. It's a climate system. It's very complicated. We're not climate scientists, so we can't tell you exactly what the information is, but we can say that we have already seen these changes in our climate system. They are leading to things like in your last segment, you were talking about fire. There's a very clear link between the increase in drought, the decrease in the availability of water in systems in the Southwest, increases in temperature, and the incidence of fire.
So with that in mind, we got a couple minutes left here as far as the report is concerned. Recommendations, what do we do? What do we do with this report?
Well, I think it's time, and incidentally, I think a nonpartisan report that came out from the Paulson Institute is suggesting that the business community also believes it's time to start doing something about climate change. We're already locked into a certain amount of climate change that has happened and that is going to happen because of the amount of carbon dioxide we put in the atmosphere. So we have to reduce the emissions of carbon dioxide.
Is that the basic recommendation of this report?
That's one of them, absolutely. Even stabilizing CO2 emissions at the current level, we're emitting over 8 gigatons of carbon a year, and the natural environment's only absorbing 4. So even if we kept it flat, which is going to be a challenge, climate change will accelerate.
But Ted, this report says quite a lot about adaptation as well. So that was the kinds of things we can do to knowing that we're going to be seeing an increase in frequency of extreme events, for example. How can we protect our coastlines? How can we protect against fire? Can we actually have a more sensible forest management plan for protecting against increased fire and that sort of thing?
All right. Well, it's good to have you both here. Good information. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And that is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of 8, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
The Global Institute of Sustainability is the heart of ASU's sustainability initiatives, advancing research, education, and business practices for an urbanizing world. Learn more about ASU sustainability at sustainability.asu.edu/TV.